Gentlemen, very warm welcome to our next Q&A session that we are going to dedicate to networking and connections, as well as discussing more in detail the experience of the candidates about Oliver Wyman. Al-Amin, I now want to pass the word to you. Can you maybe tell us how did your interview with Oliver Wyman go?
Yeah, so I had my final round interview on Tuesday with Oliver Wyman, and that was I successfully nailed the offer, and I have accepted to join Oliver Wyman this morning. I wanted to let you know first, this is the first platform I'm announcing it on.
So I think Al-Amin deserves an applause from us, guys. My congratulations to you. I mean, Al-Amin is already a third or the fourth candidate receiving the offer this week. I also wanted to share with you great news that yesterday I received another email or note from Pridam, with whom some of you have been in touch. He received Kearney, Dubai. He's currently working for Accenture. He received Kearney, Dubai, and he's also currently progressing to the final round with Bain. So wish him luck, and maybe even more offers will be coming. So Al-Amin, anyway, great news. My congratulations to you. Can you maybe tell us a little bit more about your experience with Oliver Wyman in the first rounds and also in the final round?
So I think the journey was amazing in general. I clearly see a difference between myself in first round and also in my final round. It was an intense 3 months of preparations, and I'm lucky that halfway through my preparations, I actually found the consulting master's program. For me, I'm particularly I have an example to give of why for me I really enjoyed the consulting master's program and why it made sense for me. There was a case Andre gave me on Hyperloop, and the case was about transporting people from the UAE, from Abu Dhabi to Dubai. And it was a transportational case that had to do with 12 minutes. And I can tell you for free that I failed that case woefully. And it for me, but it was really the learnings and takeaway I had from that case that pushed me. So I was a bit confident that I understood the basics of casing. And when he gave me that case, he asked me, what type of case do you want? I said, a difficult case. So when he gave me that case, I struggled through it.
And you also wanted the transportation, I think.
Exactly. And I wanted a transportation case because I had done my research and I knew that the principal, the partner that was going to interview me was in that industry. So when you gave me a very difficult case, I struggled through it. But you wouldn't believe it. So my final case was a case of transportation, and it was between Riyadh and Jeddah. And I just remember so well how I did in the other interview, my practice interview, and the learnings I took on to my final. So it was as if you were asking me my final interview question. It was a very similar case. You asked about a Hyperloop. They asked about a high-speed train.
Yeah, exactly.
And you asked, for instance, profitability and how they would break even. And I remember clearly my mistake was I solved for market entry instead of solving it as a profitability case. So I listened in very carefully, and I was able to take a lot of learnings from my practice session with you onto my final round. And I think, the partner didn't let me do the maths. He just really wanted to hear my structure, and my structure was solid. And I think that's what landed me the case. That's what landed me the job. So that's why I said I wouldn't annance it in the messages till I see you in person to say thank you so much. And
I'm awesome. That's awesome. I mean, that's what makes my love, my life so gorgeous, and I'm also, I'm so thankful to you. My congratulations. When are you going now to start at Oliver Wyman?
So I'm starting in October, 3rd of October, at the Riyadh office.
I did my first 2 rounds. Actually, the first interview was an HR interview, screening interview. Then I did the first 2 rounds. I don't know. I received an email that I passed, but I don't know when my next round is going to be. So usually did you have 4 or 5 rounds? So basically I still have 2 more, I guess. But unfortunately, they just informed me after my 2 days ago that they won't be able to onboard me for October simply because it takes 3 months for the visa. Yeah, so if I join, I'll be joining you guys in Jan.
Yeah, but not only in the Middle East. We also help Oliver Wyman to get one candidate even on the principal level last month in Germany. And also in the past, another candidate joined Oliver Wyman or is about to join Oliver Wyman on the manager position, also in the Central Europe. And a different candidate joined London office, also of Oliver Wyman. So it's not only about Middle East, but it's also Europe. And I'm pretty sure they're growing in the US as well. So, I mean, you need to ride the wave when it's coming. Al-Amin, how was your experience? Can you maybe also describe each and every interview that you used to have in more detail?
My name is Al-Amin. I am Nigerian by nationality. I studied all my life in England, went to University of Cambridge, and I briefly spent 1 year plus in Dubai where I got some experience in consulting. So I worked for the Emirates Group under Emirates Airlines. And then after that, I moved back to Nigeria and I'm part of a think tank here, a subnational think tank that advises the government on strategies and policies. That's what I do primarily. I got a bit of experience consulting, during my time in Dubai, and I loved my time in Dubai. So I made my mind up that I was going to come back to Dubai. So that's why I started applying for consulting in any case. I got in through a referral. My case interviews, I had one HR interview at the start and then 4 case interviews subsequently. My case interviews were very similar. But I think there was a lot of emphasis on, for me, why Riyadh? So they kept asking me, so why, they kept trying to make sure, do you know what you're getting into? Why Riyadh?
Are you really sure you want to get there?
Are you really sure? And for me, Riyadh comes naturally because one, my hometown, in Nigeria, is very similar culture. So it's northern Nigeria and it's heavily Arab influenced. So the cultural differences are not vast. So I would feel at home. But then I kept mentioning that if you ask any consultant at random in Dubai, where are the projects at? They'll tell you it's happening in Saudi. Saudi is where it's at. So for me, my strongest answer, I kept saying, I want to be closer to the action. I know that that's where it's mostly happening. So I want to be closer to the action. So, but the other questions about why Oliver Wyman, the typical why Oliver Wyman, why consulting, tell me about yourself. Also, there's a difference between tell me about your work experiences and describe yourself. Please don't mix those two up. It was during my practice that someone pointed out to me that, describing yourself is, telling who you are and then tell me about your work experiences, really focus on the different work experiences you had. So don't ever mix those two up. So my first interview was simple, but also it was a project the consultant was working on. So he said, I'm working on this right now. I'm not going to give you specifics, but this is how. He didn't mention the company or the country. He just said the Minister of Minister of Transport for a particular economy, which just came out of a war, is looking at going into exporting of fruits. So how would you advise the minister on how to go about this particular initiative and what are the key considerations, right? And I knew clearly it was Ukraine they were talking about, so a lot of my clarifying questions were, is the infrastructure available? When you say that they're planning to export fruits, how soon are they planning to export fruits? So I tried to get a good sense of the background before I went into the case. That was one case. My second case was very interesting. It was that a ball of fire, a meteorite is heading towards Riyadh and is going to crush everybody in Riyadh So you're to advise the Ministry of Transport on how to evacuate everyone and what are your key considerations, right? They weren't typical business situations, but I knew that it was almost like, okay, what is the timeline? What are the resources available? What are the capacity of those resources? And it ended up being a case around how many runways, if you were to evacuate people via road, there'll be gridlocks and nobody would get out in time. So use the airport. And what is the capacity of the airport? What is the capacity of the flight? Multiply the number of flights by the number of people it can take per day. And then you end up with a total number of people you can evacuate. And then you divide that by the population and you know how many days it would take for the evacuation. So you know whether you have enough time or not enough time, and then key considerations, capacity, expertise, timelines. Just a very interesting case. I wasn't expecting that case in particular because I thought I'd been so used to doing business situations. So when he said a meteorite, I was like, okay, where is this case going today? That was my second case. My third case, I think I was a bit scared of my third case, the outcome for my third case, because it was a simple question. And I think I could have solved it in 10 minutes. So I kept asking myself, there must be more. There must be a trick to this question. But sometimes it seems that they ask you simple questions, right? So the question was, your client is the third, just acquired a license to become a mobile operator in UAE and mobile network operator. And they want to know how much revenue they can generate in the first year of operations, right? And I was like, revenue is simple volume times like price, like volume times the price. So what is the volume of people? What is the market share available? And then what's the price? Like competitive pricing, what pricing strategies would you come up with? And then how would you price this and multiply that? So I was like, there's no way you mean this is a simple calculation of people times the number of customers times the price times the number of months in a year. I was like, I kept going around and he kept dragging me to the point. So I knew I had 45 minutes and I could have done that in 15 minutes. So I was like, no, there had to be some way. So I gave him a more elaborate, exhaustive framework. And he said, okay, I hear all of that, but how do you get the revenues? That he went back to that point. So at the end of the day, after beating around the bush for like 10 minutes, he was like, how do you get the revenues? And I just went to the answer and he was like, you know this, it's simple. Why are you going all around? And I was, okay. So after 10 minutes, we solved the case. And he said, thank you for taking your time, but you could have done this in 10 minutes. I said, yes. And anyways, but I mean, what I really learned from that particular interview is two things. One, your cases can be simple. So if they are simple, go ahead, like ask clarifying questions in the sense that, does this make sense to you? I'm going to take this approach. Does this make sense to you? You can always clarify. The second thing I learned is that I found it a bit frustrating because internally I was like, there has to be more. And when he kept dragging me, because he was dragging me and it was not my initial framework, he was sort of leading the case. So it felt a bit awkward, but I kept a smile on and I kept like my momentum on, right? Like I was crying and I was like, what is this? But I just kept a smile on and, even when it came to the questions, I just kept a smile on and that's what pulled me through, I think. So even if you're internally like you're dying and, you don't understand the case and you think that like you might have missed, because my framework wasn't it initially. It was just too robust for that simple question. And, when he dragged me back, I felt stupid, but I just kept a smile on. And, I think my last question, which I mentioned, was a case about transportation. And it was asking me, there's a high-speed train they're setting up between Riyadh and Jeddah. It would take 3 hours. So how would you structure profitability, right? So how profitable would this be and when would they break even? And what are your key considerations, right? I must mention that I just remember two things. One, in my second interview, the one around meteorites, I got a very good response, right? And the case engagement manager said something. He said, Al-Amin, I've given this case to 50 people. You've come up with the most creative response. That's what he told me in my second interview. And that was the meteorite case. And why? I just remember I added a bit more things to the demand. So I structured my case this way. I said demand for evacuation from Riyadh, supply, and then key considerations. So demand were who would need to be evacuated. Supply were what modes of evacuation were there. And then key considerations, timelines, capacity, and resources, right? But under my demand, I went and I said, apart from people, you might have to evacuate very valuable documents or like government secrets that cannot afford to be lost. You might need to consider evacuating wildlife, like some sort of Noah's Ark situation. And he burst into laughter and he's like, what? But he really enjoyed the fact that like I considered a lot more than, just the passengers. And I think that like, that's where, sometimes they love to see that you can be creative, even though you would not explore really. I wasn't really thinking of how many pairs of animals I'm going to be putting on a flight, but I said, it'd be worth considering wildlife. And I switched off that particular case. And he said, no, just focus on the people. But I love that you're creative. And I've given the same case to 50 people. The last case was on the Riyadh Jeddah thing. But I always end my interviews with one question. I asked a lot of questions, but one thing I noted was always leave the interviewer happy and leave him like that he remembers you. And my question is like, I mean, you've been working in Oliver Wyman for 5 years. I checked your LinkedIn out and I know you've been working. I just want you to tell me one case that you really enjoyed solving, one problem, one project that you really enjoyed solving. So it brings back a happy memory to them. It reminds them of a case that they really enjoyed solving and they leave with a smile. I think that to me was like one of the things I always make sure I did. So that's it.
Thank you very much, Al-Amin, for sharing, because these are exactly the tips that have been given to you and all other mentees every time. And I'm so happy to see that you have mastered all these fundamentals and that it has now fruited in the tremendous result. Very, very cool. And Al-Amin, what kind of tips do you have to people to prepare themselves better for personal feeds or for case part interviews, or what kind of questions to ask at the very end?
So I remember one of the pointers that made me take the personal fit very seriously was I thought that it was something that I could always just wing. And I've been interviewing with Cristiano. He was my initial mentor on this program. And he told me, Al-Amin, don't take it lightly. People failed his personal fits question. So he made me think about it in a structured way. What are the possible questions? Write those questions down and then come up with 3 bullet points for all of those different questions. So why Oliver Wyman? Oliver Wyman is growing. Oliver Wyman is known for you're always going to be working with really smart people, so you get to learn from them. And then lastly, Oliver Wyman is known, it gives you the opportunity for a very fast career growth. I've spoken to a lot of people and consultants. So have your bullet points for every single question, those 3 bullet points, and write down stories ahead under them, because you would always, sometimes a consultant will be like, how do you know that we're like a fast growing company? Or what do you know about the fact that we've acquired Booz Allen Hamilton? What do you think that means? So have those stories. Sometimes you would see, you would see that some cases would need you to, some consultants will need you to actually explain a little bit more. So always write down your 3 bullet points. Start with those 3 bullet points. I can remember my 3 bullet points for almost all of my questions till now. And that's what really helped me. So it was never catching me off guard. Most personal fit questions, there are 6 questions you should always know the answers to. But I think I have my notes here, in fact, on the 6 questions.
Can you maybe recap them one more time?
Yeah, I think I have a note here. Let me pull it out on my computer. Okay, so why consulting? 1, why are you at 2? Why Oliver Wyman? 3, where do you see yourself in 5 years? 4, describe yourself. 5, and then tell me something that's not on your resume. 6. There's an extra one, which I don't have many points, but when a time when you failed, and I don't think they love asking those questions. I don't know. I never got asked those questions. I don't know if they asked anyone else, but I noticed that was the trend in all of my questions, those 6 questions. And I have my bullet points here on each of those questions, 1, 2, 3, for each of them. So I have 3 bullet points. I can share them. I can always share these notes if anybody cares.
Yeah, I also want to add a few more questions to the list that you've mentioned. Number 1 would be, tell me about your strengths. Or number 2 would be, what are the things that your previous boss would criticize about yourself? Yeah, and the other questions are typical behavioral questions, like tell me about the instance where you needed to showcase your leadership, where you needed to demonstrate conflict management, how you solved the conflict, or how did you solve the problem? What has been the most complicated problem in your professional life and why? Or the other thing might be, tell me about your negotiation or convincing skills, like how did you persuaded someone who had a different opinion. So these are the most common 10 questions that you might be having in most of the interviews that you need to make sure that you are ready to answer at 2 a.m. in the morning if you are waking up before your interview.
Yeah.
So to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Al-Amin, what are the other tips that you might be having either on personal fit or on the cases?
I think generally appearance matters. Perception matters. How serious you dress for the interview also matters. It matters that you come and you show that you're prepared for that particular interview. It shows that you're taking it serious. I remember I was asked why Oliver Wyman, and I also answered why Oliver Wyman and why consulting in my very first behavioral question. And she said, it seems like you have these answers in your head. You've prepared so hard. I haven't even asked you why consulting, and you've answered that. And I was like, I'm sorry, I can't hold it in. I've been preparing so hard for this. But in general, prepare well. It took me 3 months. It might take anyone else less time. But for me personally, I didn't want to leave any stone unturned. And especially because I'd interviewed previously with BCG in 2019, and I wasn't ready. I can tell the difference between 2019 me and 2022 me. Right? I took it as, okay, I'm just going to do a few cases, but it really matters. The prepping time, the amount of time you put into not prepping on your computer. I have I don't know if you can see this. So these are the number of sheets of preparational materials. These are A4 sheets of papers I've gone through, right? Just preparing in the last 3 months for the interviews, right? And I remember when I was doing for BCG, I would just casually read stuff. If I found someone on Prep Lounge, I would interview with them. No, I took it seriously. When my Prep Lounge account was I wouldn't pay for the premium. I think it's an overkill. But I finished my account, deleted the account, made a new account. I probably got maybe 20, 25 cases on Prep Lounge. As soon as my account finishes, I'm doing a new account and starting all over again. That kind of thing. I'm sure
that's also one of the reasons why I wrote a post about don't take your preparation lightly on the social media last week. Because when it was for me also a very, very clear picture. I mean, we've been working with so many candidates, and I have one candidate with a very similar attitude like you. He was even one of the senior consultants at one of the big four companies. He had a chance to interview with BCG, with Roland Berger, with Kearney, and I think a few more companies because he already was a consultant. So he had all his chances. And he took all of them lightly. And I don't know, he made me literally very mad because he was bombing like every interview. And I was going, like, dude, what are you doing? You are losing all your opportunities. And he is still stuck with the same company as initially, simply because of that attitude as you were describing back in 2019. And on the other side, we had another mentee, Iram, who was an opera singer before going into consulting, who, like, instead of all you guys, she came from a completely different background, and through hard work, through dedication and our guidance, she was able to showcase, brilliant results. She was one of the most brilliant candidates I've been working with in the last few months. And now she joined BCG in London. So these kind of people are really amazing me. So that's why I also want to direct my message to all of you watching this video, because this is a very important message that Al-Amin just shared with you. Your attitude is a key deciding factor on whether you will get this job or not. Because 99% won't get the job. And only 1% will actually go through the entire interview process and go for it. So don't take it lightly, take it seriously. And if you need any help, please also get in touch with our customer manager in order to help you to get there, so that we can basically arrange all the necessary support for you. All right, cool. Do you have any more tips or any more questions that you would like to discuss today, or that you would like to share?
Hi guys, I'm Mohammed Saad, a mentee at Consulting Masters. I'm actually sort of scheduled for an interview in September with Oliver Wyman, but that's for the implementation role. It's not for the strategic consulting. But I do believe the interview process would be quite similar to how the interview strategic consultants in general. I did hear you guys out, but how would you really take, because the personal fit is quite tailorsome, right? I mean, you work on it constantly. I mean, I've been getting some really nice feedback from my mentor, Rashid, and from Andre. Remember the first time he spoke to me and he's like, man, you need something done for yourself. But that sort of helps you believe that, this is where you're lacking. You need to build upon that. But going forward, especially for the cases, now I'm not from a target business school for my MBA, even though my bachelor's was from LSE. I sometimes just think to myself that maybe it is the reason that would deter me of, not getting interviewed. Or if I'm in an interview, they might, push me under certain elements, asking me, why did I do my MBA from this particular school? What motivated me? So can I expect these sort of questions by the interview?
Yeah, sure, definitely. I mean, Saad, it's not a handicap for you, and I think you shouldn't be worried about it. But you should be having this winning kind of an attitude. And one more tip is try to enjoy the process as much as you can. Just be relaxed, just be yourself, smile, be positive. Some of the people will be trying to play assholes and will try to smash you. Don't let yourself down. Don't let yourself to be placed outside of your comfort zone. Stay calm, stay positive, keep on smiling, and give it another shot. If you are stuck, then take one step back, review the problem from a different angle, try to approach it with a different approach, and go for it. And with that attitude, with that lightliness, don't be light on preparation, but be light on execution during the interviews itself. I'm pretty sure you will master it. We will be able to congratulate you a few weeks and months down the line.
I'm actually glad, if I do get a chance of even joining the implementation team to work with Ahmed and Al-Amin potentially in the future in one way or the other, that would be really nice. There's a lot to think in here. So that would be a wonderful opportunity. But yes, that's great. And I would really hope for, if Al-Amin or Ahmed, for yourself, whenever if you guys have time in the coming week or so, I'd really like to connect with you guys individually to really understand your mindset, especially like I think the only daunting part for me is the case prep, and that too, I don't know why, but it's the mathematical part. It's sort of like, because all of our lives, you're just used to using a calculator so often. I mean, I can tell myself where I was the day I joined Consulting Masters, and thanks to Andre and his team. And there's a lot that I've overcome. But it's just like, you always have that sense of nervousness inside you, like, oh man, no, what I just need, like, I think when Al-Amin, you need to go for that overkill every time in your head, like, nah, this can't be it. I need to go that extra mile, I think. That's the only thing that unnerves me at times.
Yeah, we will work on this as well. I'm pretty sure.
Right, guys.
So when I was also preparing for interviews, everyone told me, just be calm. And I can't, so it's a bit like crazy because I'm like, what do you mean I should be calm, right? Because in my head, I know this is like a lot of nerves. There's a lot at stake. I'm tired and I want to move into consulting. So it's like a big deal. But for me, what worked is I was nervous. Like I wouldn't eat. If I eat anything, I would throw up before my interviews because of it wouldn't just settle in my tummy, right? Like I was really nervous. One thing I did was I realized that, okay, after my first interview, if I eat anything, I'll be nervous. So that wouldn't work for me. So I'll drink a lot of water. I would do deep exercise, breath, whatever works for you. Just calm down because it's not as they're not trying to make you fail.
Yeah, all right. I also just wanted to add one more comment on that before we will be leaving. And it's about being nervous. Actually, I also was very nervous in my initial interviews, but then I changed it to a different feeling. Change your feeling from being nervous to being excited about receiving an opportunity. And that will bring you the necessary fruits. So don't be nervous, but Saad, become exciting. Okay?
Absolutely.
All right. With this very brilliant note and comments, I actually want to thank you for really great meeting that we used to have today. And I want to wish you a great success in your future preparations. And whenever you guys need any kind of help, just let us know. Please speak to our client managers or arrange sessions with our experts. And on behalf of Consulting Masters, we are more than happy to help you. Salam. My sincere congratulations to all of you guys, Praneet, Saad, and all other guys watching these videos. We want to help you to make it. So go for it. And all the very best. Thank you so much. I totally enjoyed this session.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andre.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.